Hi, I'm Pancho Verde, and this is Crash Course US History, and today we're going to talk about the social aspects of the Red Scare. The Red Scare is called the Red Scare because the commies were known as Reds, and everyone was terrified of red.
Señor Verde, weren't the communists called Reds because their favorite food was ketchup?
No, me as a little girl from the past, they were actually known as the Reds because of their allegiance to the Soviet flag, which was red. There were actually two Red Scares. The first one happened after the end of the World War I and the Bolshevik Revolution. The fear of Reds flourished as Unionists who went on strike were viewed as communists. The Red Scare calmed down until the end of World War II, where it further intensified as the US and USSR entered into an arms race, and not arms as in your arm, as in like guns and Americans were afraid, and out of this fear, processes like McCarthyism were born. The Red Scare greatly influenced media at the time. It didn't turn everything red, it just influenced. I'll talk about it later. The first Red Scare was a time of great fear for many Americans. As the First World War came to an end, Americans became more patriotic. As communism grew, patriotic Americans saw communist viewpoints as a threat to U.S. values and ideals. During this time, many political cartoons reflected the fears of Americans. These political cartoons were often the only information Americans saw about communism, and this heavily influenced their opinions about communism. This demonstrates the idea that Bolshevism and communism were going to crush and attack the U.S. This was the fear of many Americans, and political cartoons like this one, where the U.S. is being attacked by a huge, unfriendly beast, perpetuated Americans' fears. Political cartoons, such as this one, was the only information Americans were getting about communism during that time, making the fear of communism much stronger than it would have been if Americans were getting the two sides of the story. Political cartoons encouraged people to kick out communists, which encouraged fear. In this cartoon, the Americans depicted as the laborers, the public, and the capital are kicking out the communists, otherwise known as the agitators. The song "We Will Never Change the Blue and White to Red" was popularized in 1919 and shows how widespread U.S. patriotism was during the time of the first Red Scare. It also reflects the Americans' hatred for communists, Reds, during that time. The second Red Scare occurred at the end of World War II. World War II left the U.S. and Soviet Union as the two largest world superpowers. Fear of communism was born out of the differing ideologies of the U.S. and USSR and out of the arms races between the two. This poster from the Civil Defense shows communists as a vampire. By using a vampire, this poster shows a belief that communists were people who would either infect those around them or kill others. This poster is a warning for Americans to watch out for their neighbors, because you never know who could be a communist. This cartoon features the burning of the American flag. It represents the fear that if communism came into the U.S., Americans would be destroyed and innocent people would be harmed. Propaganda and political cartoons changed from the first Red Scare to the second. While the first Red Scare focused on communism destroying the U.S. as a whole, the second Red Scare focused more on communism targeting individuals. They stayed the same because during both time periods, they were used to influence the ideas and opinions of the American people and to make them think negatively about communism. Oh, looks like it's time for the mystery document! The rules here are simple. I read this document, and I guess the author of it. If I get it right, then hooray for me. And if I get it wrong, I get shot by the pen. Okay, let's go. The President, the White House. In a Lincoln Day speech at Wheeling Thursday night, I stated that the State Department harbors a nest of communist and communist sympathizers who are helping to shape our foreign policy. I further stated that I have in my possession the names of 57 communists who are in the State Department at present. Wow, PB, this is obviously written by Truman.
Actually, it's McCarthy.
McCarthy? Double darn it! Guess I have to get shocked by a shotgun. McCarthy was a senator from Wisconsin who led the change to find communists in Hollywood and in U.S. politics. McCarthy, along with the House of Un-American Activities Committee, also known as HWAC, imprisoned and blacklisted many people who he believed to be communist. The Second Red Scare came to a close when McCarthy began targeting the U.S. Army and news anchors, even though he had no evidence that they were communist. He lost his credibility, and after he stopped targeting people, the Second Red Scare ended. Both Red Scares influenced U.S. pop culture, especially during the Second Red Scare. Many movies, books, and TV shows showed the Americans' fear of communism. Films like The Red Menace portrayed communists as an evil force that destroyed the lives of everyone. The motion picture industry would use film to disseminate Soviet propaganda. Movies featuring unknown, unstoppable forces like the Blob weren't outright about communism, but they did represent America's fears at the time. Comic books like Captain America portrayed America as a superhero, defeating all evil, usually associated with communist ideals. The House Un-American Activities Committee, also known as HWAC, a committee of the U.S. House of Representatives, investigated allegations of communist activity in the U.S. during the early years of the Cold War. Unable to resist the incredible publicity that would come from taking down Hollywood Reds, HWAC opened hearings into communist activities in Hollywood in 1947, later known as the Hollywood 10, was a conviction of 10 people in the film industry for being former or current members of the Communist Party. Propaganda and pop culture during both Red Scares only provided the American people with one point of view on communism. The lack of information intensified the Americans' fear and allowed for the Red Scare to escalate as much as it did, which led to an increase in military spending and intervention in other countries' affairs. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Thanks for watching. U.S. History Crash Course video was possible thanks to all these beautiful people. Executive producer Laurel, scriptwriter Sonia, creative director Delilah, and director Phoebe. See you next week. Yes, where is the United States of Democracy America?
Right there.
Right here. Pendejos, right here is Russia. After the end of the World War I and the Bolshevik Revolution.
Bolshevik.
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 There you go.
Bolshevik.
There you go.
Do some crazy ass shit.
Something like that.
As the first war came to an end. Duck, goose. Ah! You have to get me. Uh-oh. Oh, let's play that again. Duck. You want the apple? Oh, snap. Oh, snap.